Good morning. Today on Spotlight, a pre-July 4th holiday special, celebrating our nation's birthday. Our guests, two Michigan women from very different backgrounds, but they have an important history in common that they share with thousands of other women across our country. They are both members and leaders of a local chapter of the National Society Daughters of the American Revolution, better known as the DAR. Leanne Tiffany, Regent, and Karen Batchelor, Vice Regent, respectfully, of the Detroit chapter. So sit back and enjoy what I promise will be a fascinating and uplifting conversation. It's Sunday, June the 29th. I'm Chuck Stokes, and this is a Spotlight pre-Independence Day special. Leanne, you're going to get the first question. I'm going to start back a couple years ago, August 19th, 2023, smack dab in the city of Detroit. You started a Daughters of American Revolution chapter. Why was it necessary to start that particular chapter? I know you were there, and for an organization that has thousands of chapters and goes way back in our history.
DAR had chapters in every major city in the United States and even globally. And Detroit was the only city that did not have a chapter, which was, when somebody told me that, that was mind-boggling. So when I got the call about starting the Detroit chapter, it was a no-brainer because Detroit is such an incredible city with incredible culture and amazing history that it needed to be a part of the DAR story.
Karen Batchelor, I'm going to read you something. At that particular ceremony, the speaker said something that I think is relevant as it relates to the goal of the chapter. It said, to weave magic into racially the diverse quilt that we all live in. Is that the major goal of that particular chapter with a whole lot of sub stuff up underneath it?
Well, there is some sub stuff because we do have our goals as a national society to support patriotism, historic preservation, education. But certainly for our chapter, taking into account the unique blend of diversity that we have in the Detroit area was a big consideration. We want to be that chapter where we can draw upon a diverse group of women who share this very unique kind of heritage of being able to trace their ancestry to someone who fought in or gave service during the American Revolution.
It really is, for me, started with a conversation with some of my relatives who just casually one day mentioned, oh, we're descended from even people who date back to the Mayflower, though I'm working on those proofs, and people who fought in the American Revolution. And I have always had a love of history. And at the time, I was living right near our National Society's headquarters in Washington, D.C., and so I went over to their library and started doing research and found this incredible lineage for my family that did date back to the American Revolution.
And I can't help but resist the temptation. It's probably a long shot, but knowing how far back your history goes, when I look at the last name, any chance you're related to that mint green sign, where people go in and buy jewelry?
Technically, yes, not close enough to get any of the benefits of it, but definitely do have that connection for sure.
It would be nice if you could get some of those benefits. That's all right. Having just that history is nice. Karen Batchelor, 1976. Take me back to that pivotal year in your life, in your history, and the news that you made.
Well, in 1976, for my New Year's resolution, I decided to trace my family history because my son had just been born the prior year. And as I thought about, wow, here's a new generation in our family, And I realized there were gaps in the family history that I would be able to share with him. And so I set off on a journey before the internet, before, ancestry.com, to find out a little bit more about my family. I had no idea that I would end up finding an ancestor who fought in the American Revolution. And I literally stumbled upon him about 10 months into my research. And I like to say, I don't know who was more surprised, him or me, but that started my journey. And that led to my ultimately joining the organization in October of 1977.
How monumental was that as an African American to be able to make that link?
One of my genealogy mentors, who was at the Detroit Public Library, encouraged me to apply to DAR. And I didn't know until then that there weren't any Black members. It wasn't even something I was thinking of pursuing at the time. But I learned along the way that this was something that I needed to do. My dad always said, sometimes opportunities come up and you're the person who has to take a stand to make a difference. And so I did, by making that application, applying, getting rejected by a local chapter, but ultimately I was able to make history in that way. And it was on the front page of the New York Times. I was on Good Morning America. I was kind of heady stuff for the, I don't know, I was
so.
like 27-year-old me. But it became something that is now part of my life and will be till the day I leave here. I love being a member of DAR, and I love doing family history, and so I get to blend those two things together.
We'll take a quick little pause for the calls, and we'll come back. Leanne, I want to talk to you a little bit about your background in terms of science and journalism and how all that is fitting into what you mentioned earlier, public service and patriotism. We'll be right back. Stay with us. For people who are so used to always seeing just DAR, NSDAR, Leanne, the significance so that people are following this.
Of course, of course. So it is NSDAR formally because it is the National Society Daughters of the American Revolution. And that, if for anyone who doesn't know NSDAR, there's our national society, then we have a state level, and then local chapters like the Detroit chapter representing local communities. NSDAR has hit over 1 million members since its founding, which is incredible to show how many people can trace their lineage back to people who fought for the freedom of this nation. And really, it has become such a diverse group of people from all backgrounds, all walks of life, all racial backgrounds, and it really is growing.
Karen, you were actually a Jeopardy question once, correct?
Yes, it was.
Tell us briefly about that and how that fits into all this.
Well, I actually didn't see this segment, but my phone blew up after it aired. The question was something like Detroiter Karen Batchelor traced her history to this particular man in Pennsylvania and became a member of what association? And the answer, of course, was Daughters of the American Revolution.
And
everybody got the answer.
Very, very good. You found that one way back when, but you've done a lot more genealogical research since then. How many links have you found that go back to your ancestry in the American Revolution?
So my most recent was proven in the last month. So I now have 8 ancestors who fought in or gave patriotic or civil service during the American Revolution. And they were from different colonies were the colonies at the time. but I'm amazed. I was shocked when I found one Patriot ancestor. So to have eight is, this is like hitting the Jeopardy.
Leanne, how many links do you have?
So proven currently I have two. I just got my second one a couple days ago, actually. I need to put more work into genealogy. People like Karen are brilliant experts in being able to find those links. So that's something like I definitely lean on people like Karen to be able to help me really learn more about my family tree and my family history. So really it's a community of people who come together to help fill in the blanks for our nation's history.
I'm curious, how much did your background and your interests, you're a scientist, sort of turned journalist. You have beautifully blended the two together and gotten national and international recognition as a storyteller in both of those areas, and as well as dealing with the environment and all the things that you're dealing with on a professional basis. You're working on your PhD at Michigan State University School of Communications. How much did that play into the drive to dig into this history and to link it all and to get into what, as I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, are some of the pillars of DAR: historic preservation, genealogical societies, and patriotism?
Yes, historic preservation, education, and patriotism are the incredible pillars. And I definitely am in the education space doing my PhD as well as educating the next generation of journalists and public relations practitioners. But I really got into this blend of science and journalism and communication because I noticed this alarming gap in how we communicate science to the public and just this lack of both accuracy and understanding, and having people from all walks of life be able to understand science and be able to know critical information. The global pandemic was one example where communication was sorely lacking, and it was right as I was starting my PhD. So it's something where really I got into this because I want to give back to our nation and the world, be able to make a difference. And I'm trying to do that. I currently work for the United States Environmental Protection Agency, helping them with their communication efforts. And I got into DAR for public service and being able to give back.
We'll come right back with some more questions. Karen, I want to talk about your trained profession as an attorney and how that fits into what you're doing today, and a little bit of history about the DAR and a woman named Marian Anderson. We'll be right back. Stay with us. And welcome back to Spotlight. Karen, we've known each other for a long time. I know that for a long period of time you were in the corporate world here in Detroit as an attorney. You now spend a tremendous amount of time since you retired from that. I'd probably say full-time helping people with their genealogy and how to trace their history and all things related to that, and a true historian. But tell me the story about Marian Anderson, the phenomenal singer, and at that particular time, the DAR, which owns the Constitution Hall, would not allow her to sing. And now let you fill in the blanks in your kind of personal connection to that.
My personal connection to that is that my mother was a college student at Howard University in 1939 when that event happened. And she actually was at the Lincoln Memorial and heard Marian Anderson sing that fateful day that made history. It gave, DAR kind
of. And for
of
people who don't know, she had to go from Constitution Hall, which she couldn't get into, over to the steps of the Lincoln Memorial.
Outside,
because she couldn't get inside, sang, and of course it made, international news.
And at that time, Washington, D.C. was a segregated city. There was Jim Crow there. So, this was the sign of the times. But I was really grateful to hear my mother's story that she was there when and got to see Marian Anderson sing. And then later, Mom became also a member of DAR. So she might have been the only DAR member who was ever at that concert. But in more recent years, DAR has spent a lot of time uh, honoring Marian Anderson and literally her civil rights work, and trying to change the image that people had of the organization because of that one incident. And they've done some really interesting things like the E Pluribus Unum database and the 10 million names project participation in recent years to move the needle forward on embracing diversity in our country. It wasn't my idea. It was actually the last two president generals, or the heads of DAR, who really spearheaded this effort to embrace Black history in America. And so E Pluribus Unum is a database that DAR created out of a book that was written on the forgotten patriots, the patriots of color who weren't ever recognized for their service. And so a book was published, and then this led to taking that information from the book, creating a database, finding other data that they could on these patriots, who all we know is their first name. But there were over 5,000 African Americans who fought in the American Revolution. And now many of their descendants are members of DAR as a result of having a resource like E Pluribus Unum available. And now DAR has licensed E Pluribus Unum to the New England Historic and Genealogical Society as part of the 10 Million Names Project, which is to reclaim the names and identities of 10 million Africans who came here and who have been lost to history.
Very good. All right, we're going to take one more break. I promise we'll come right back with a final quick segment. And Leanne, I want you to talk about what you hope is the future of the Detroit chapter of the DAR. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Leanne Tiffany, 1890 was when Daughters of American Revolution was founded. At least 3,000 chapters out there and more to come. Yours is one of the newest. What do you hope will be the future of the Detroit chapter?
I really hope that we're able to connect with the city of Detroit and the incredible people that make it up. We're really representing the future of DAR. DAR has a little bit of an image of, oh, it's like an old ladies kind of socialite society, and it's not. It is this incredible, vibrant community of people from all walks of life, all racial backgrounds, who just want to give back, be connected to their history, and then see to the future. And that's what this chapter is all about, the future of DAR and the future of our country. And we're really excited to be a part of the amazing city of Detroit and to be a part of the story.
All right.
And
we should probably, I should have probably established earlier, you're doing this interview from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, which you have some connections to because you went to undergraduate school there, but you're really from this area, correct?
Correct. I do have strong Michigan ties for sure. So Michigan is my home.
Very good. Karen, as we hear day to day the debate over immigration and the role that immigration is or is not playing in America today, and you think about the history, the rich history of this country and the diverse history of this country, any final thoughts that you want to communicate as we come up on one of our oldest national holidays, Independence Day, July 4th?
what I would say, Chuck, is that we all, unless you're an Indigenous American, we all came here from somewhere else, however we got here. And what I would urge people to consider as we approach the 4th of July and this concept of being American is where do you fit in the mix of being American? Your story, your family history is just as important as anybody's whose goes back to the American Revolution. So I encourage people, and you've seen me do this, to start looking into your family history. That is part of our culture as Americans, is all of our history blended together. And if I would say anything for the 4th of July is it's not just about fireworks, it's about your family and your history here as an American.
And very briefly, if people want to get started tracing their genealogy, there are all types of genealogical societies out there. I know you're a member of a zillion different organizations. What's probably the easiest and best way to just get started on this journey?
Well, number one, if you're African American, I would urge you to tap into the new 10 million names database. And that is a free database that you can search for information on African American ancestors. And if you have either, whatever your heritage is, I would urge you to check another free database called Family Search. But the first thing is always to start with yourself, work your way back one generation at a time, and talk to your older relatives while they're still around to tell the stories that make up our histories as Americans.
All right. And Leanne, thank you so much for joining us from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, which of course is very apropos as we head into this very special holiday in all the history of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And I won't ask you if you root for the Spartans or if you root for the Columbia Lions, since you got your master's at Columbia Journalism School, or your undergraduate school there in Philadelphia. Luckily, they're all different divisions, so they don't have to play against each other, correct?
Exactly. Yeah, it's good.
Thank you so much, both of you, for joining us today, and happy 4th of July. I'm Chuck Stokes. We'll be back next week with more newsmakers in the spotlight. We hope you have a great week.